Hi everyone, I'm Brianna and welcome to Roll Initiative. Today we're going to be talking about some things that you should know and keep in mind when you're running D&D for new players. So, let's get started. So, one of the biggest things to remember when you're DMing for a table of new players is that they don't know the rules like experienced players will, and they're probably going to need a lot more guidance from the DM than a more experienced party would. And that means that the game might take longer as your players don't know what they're doing as well, and they're going to be needing a lot of guidance from you, and you can't be talking to every player at the table at once. So it's going to be hard to be able to answer everyone's questions and to make everything clear to everyone. So, if you're playing with a table entirely of new players, then I'd probably suggest playing with a little bit of a smaller group, so it'll make it a little bit easier to be there for all of them. Because your main goal here is to make sure they enjoy the game. You don't want to give them a bad first game at any TTRPG because it can turn them off that game for a long time. So, your main goal through all of this is to make sure that your players are having fun and enjoying themselves. Now, character creation can take a long time with new players as they don't know how to create a character and there is a lot to it. So, some people use pre generated characters, and I think that's okay, but a lot of the fun for new players is getting to create their own character. So, you might be able to use pre generated characters as a backup. Ask everyone if they want to use a pre-generated character, and if not, then just help them through character creation. And one of the biggest things you should keep in mind while helping with character creation is that they don't have to play something really easy, because some players will actually do better playing a harder class. I know a lot of people suggest to give new players easier classes to play, such as a fighter or a rogue, and I think that's really good and works really well for a lot of the time. But some players do better when they're just thrown in the deep end. And it's also good to keep in mind with coming up with stats and everything that you can suggest to your players what would help them the most, but you shouldn't tell them what to do with their stats. They'll learn and they'll get used to what they like and what they don't like. But it's going to be much more fun for them if they can experiment. You have given them your advice, and if they choose to follow it, then they'll probably end up with a more powerful or easier to play character. If they don't, then it was their choice and they can change it up next time. Because while a big part of it is trying to make sure that they play something they'll enjoy, and you can suggest that, it's not going to be much fun for them if you make all of their choices and tell them what to do either. A lot of new players don't realize the sort of commitment it takes to play a long running game of D&D. So it's probably a good idea to keep your first game with them very short. Not a one shot as they won't get to play around and really get used to the game, but still a short campaign. Maybe you play for 3, 5 sessions. Maybe you're playing for 1 or 2 months. Just nothing too long that it'll take a lot to commit to it, because you don't want it to go on so long that they weren't prepared for and that they can't do it anymore and have to drop out. And I think it's so much better if you can actually finish and tie off a game, especially when it's their first. So, before actually running a game, I think it's a really good idea to go over boundaries and talk to everyone about what is allowed at the table and what they want to avoid, whether that's certain monsters, whether it's certain conversations or topics. It is really good to know this sort of stuff so that everyone can be aware and can avoid it. and that way it gives you, as the DM, a guide on what to shut down really quickly if anything comes up. And as for actually playing the game, I'd suggest taking it a bit easy on the rules, playing by the rule of cool, giving your players just a bit of a chance to get used to the game and how everything works without having to be really strict about the rules. And combat is where it gets really difficult and a lot of players find it really hard. So I'd suggest keeping combat really short, maybe lowering the monster's HP. That way they get some easy demos almost before doing harder combat. But there we go, that's the end of this video, and I really hope you enjoyed it and that it was helpful. And if it was, then I'd be super grateful if you'd let me know by giving it a like or maybe even subscribing to my channel. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.